How We Made a Clockwork Orange You by Malcolm McDowell. Stanley Kubrick had put aside his adaptation of Anthony Burgess' novel because he couldn't find the right actor to play Alex, the violent thug. Then he saw Lindsay. I spent 9 months with Stanley before we started shooting, watching violent movies every day. They were the most horrific. One day, I asked Stanley what my friends the Droogs were going to look like. He said, "What have you?" "I don't know what I want," Stanley would say, "but I do know what I don't want." The shoot took 6. In the scene where I am being worked over by the police, the probation officer, played by Aubrey Morris, was supposed to spit on me. Poor old Aubrey. During our preparation, Stanley showed me a picture of an eye operation patient with lid locks on and asked me if I could have that done to me. Hell, no. I said. We had shot the ending, which takes place in hospital, but we were stuck on the very important sequence with the beating up of the writer and the gang rape of his wife. We changed the furniture. I was exhausted afterwards. I drove to Cornwall. ID asked for $100,000 and 2.5% of the box office, which is what ID got paid on my previous film. Stanley told me. I went to Stanley's house and he showed me a rough cut of the film. I was impressed. I picked up my Aerograph 95 airbrush and got to work. They sent me Alex. The poster was plastered everywhere in the press, on the underground, on billboards. It was often next. A Clockwork Orange is in cinemas from April 5th. Stanley Kubrick related these movies did not age well. Espresso.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.